gray area. You will either take the mark or the national ID card or whatever technology that they're going to put it in. You're going to take it or you're not. And the decision you make is going to determine your fate for eternity.
Amen.
And that's what we're going to be here to talk about. Mike, thank you so much. I'm looking
Thank you,
forward.
brother.
You go, boy. Here you go. I'm sorry.
I am so glad we have Dave Von Kleist and Joyce Riley on Genesis. We have so many gemstones. And
I'm sorry. Mike Deagle. I didn't give his name. I'm sorry.
And I love his humor. Well, if you haven't heard from me already, and I try to make my mother said I started talking at 6 months, and she still tells me to shut up, and it doesn't do any good. What I'm going to show you today is, and I want to just start off with giving a good evening to everybody, and really thank you for coming to this Unveiling the Beast conference. And a special thanks to Pastor Butch and his wife. And honestly, I can tell you they're wonderful people, and they're going to get a special blessing from what they've done here today. Not just to the support of all the wonderful people who have come here, but those who are going to see this video and remember this day. This is not just a conference day. This is a very, very important day in the history of the people of Israel. And you have to understand, what's happened in the church is an abomination has occurred. I run a business, you might know, if you listen to my program on Genesis Communication. It's called NutriMedical. That's nutrition and medicine. And my background is I was a biochemist and bacteriologist before I went into medicine, and I've done research in many areas. So I'm a scientist. And persecution comes when you do the right thing. And it's like the old story, no good deed goes unpunished. You have to understand, if you put my name in the internet, you're going to see a lot of garbage. A lot of lies and a lot of things that are terrible. And that's because I'm sure if there was the internet at the time of Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus, or Paul, they'd come up with some pretty amazing stories against them. And what you have to understand is I'm still a physician. I'm still doing the right thing for injured workers and people with depleted uranium, and fighting against the vaccines of horror and destruction, and fighting against all the evils that are being done, not only in this nation but elsewhere. And I'm no big, great person. What I want you to do is not realize that I'm better than you, but I'm probably more capable of any evil than you can even imagine. But I've turned toward the light and not the dark side. Now, in our audience, we have a mixed audience here, and there's people that are junior Christians and people that are very mature. And they're in every church, whether it's the Roman Catholic Church or the Protestant Church. There are believers everywhere. But what God is saying today is a very different thing. He said, don't pluck up the wheat among the tares until the time of harvest. That day has arrived today. This is a time of very great destruction, not only of the Constitution, but of the people of God. And Satan's plans are now, as you can see, all these speakers, from Joan Vian, who's a genius at all of the financial things, and I'm going to go back and watch your video 5 times so I can get it down pat. And Craig Roberts, all the investigations. These people have not been put in these places because they're just at the right place at the right time for one event. They're at hundreds of events and times, and it's a supernatural appointment. It's like Daniel the prophet. Daniel was called before he was in his mother's womb to speak to the people, because God made him. God conceived him in his mind's eye and said, I want to send a blessing to the people and a judgment to the people at the same time in the voice of a prophet. And what God says in Amos chapter 3 is that surely the Lord does nothing except he sends his servant, he shows it to his servants, the prophets. I come today to speak to you as a physician and as a scientist, but I also come to speak to you prophetically. And if you were around the tables earlier, after I did some prayer outside this morning, I came up and I read the first and second chapters of a book that the Lord gave me, the first 2 chapters of which I was permitted to say today. The first chapter was released 6.5 years ago when I traveled around with a group called the Prophecy Club. The second chapter was released today. And I'm going to read to you a few scriptures. This one was from a book that I wrote 7 years ago. It's called Abortion to Armageddon, which I'm rewriting, adding a lot more information. And I'm going to give you 2 scriptures, and because I don't know what I'm going to do when I come up here. I said, Lord says to me, don't read off all the stuff that you've prepared. You give to the people the food spiritually that they need now. Okay? The first scripture is from Genesis chapter 3, verse 22. And the Lord God said, Behold, the man is become as one of us, to know good and evil. And now, lest he put forth his hand and take also of the tree of life and eat and live forever. Therefore the Lord God sent him forth from the Garden of Eden to till the ground from whence he was taken. So he drove out the man, and he placed at the east of the Garden of Eden cherubims and a flaming sword which turned every way, to keep the way of the tree of life. That flaming sword is flashing in our face today when we do genetic engineering of viruses and clone human beings to hang on wires like the movie Coma and create cyborg soldiers. And I'm going to reveal to you today technical facts and details. Now, I'm compressing a 300-hour lecture down to about an hour and 50 minutes. We'll see how much time I have. But I am available. You can call me. You can contact me. My ministry website will be set up in the next month or so. It's called clayandiron.com. We're also going to be having Pal Talks, so we actually will discuss things on the internet so we can have an open discussion. And I'll have a site very similar to my NutriMedical website. That's NUTRImedical.com. And the reason is that the Lord blessed me with this so that I would have a platform on which to tell people the truth, because the Lord wants you to have the two witnesses in the court of law in your own mind, just like Colonel Craig Roberts has said, and the wonderful intellect that you have with John Vian and Joyce Riley and Dave with his humor, is God gave us a mind to use it, not just to keep our hair from falling over our eyes. And the mind that is clouded, just like I had a discussion earlier today about, one of the salespeople that happens to go visit some Jewish people, and when they talk about Yeshua or Jesus, they get angry. Well, they get angry because they're demonically oppressed. There's a spiritual darkness. It doesn't matter if their IQ is 200. They're going to get very angry when you tell them about the need for salvation. And it's not just a need so you kind of go to the right place. I call it hell insurance. It's because without God, we will have hell on earth, and it's coming really soon. Okay? The second scripture I want to give you is Jeremiah 1:5. Behold, I formed thee in the belly, I knew thee. And before thou camest forth out of the womb, I sanctified thee, and ordained thee a prophet unto the nations. And today, when I say the first 2 chapters of the small scroll, I'm blowing the trumpet for the house of Ephraim. And if you're not a Jew and you believe in Yeshua, you are of the house of Ephraim, of the house of Israel. And God's saying today, come out of these 501c3 churches. Come out of them now. Come out of these churches of compromise and come into the light and understand that without the knowledge, not of Jewish belief in holy days, these are the holy days of our Creator God, and they're eternal. They're not something that's going to be abolished. We have to enter every day into the Sabbath, every day into the Pesha, every day into the Holy of Holies by communing with God. And I want to finish with one other scripture here before I start my talk. And we in America have no idea just how much judgment we have brought upon ourselves. And I'm going to paraphrase this. The Lord said, though you call forth to me and cry out for mercy, I do not hear your cries of mercy and your prayers, no matter how great and holy you think you are, because your hands are covered by blood. And when we looked at the pictures today, beyond trees, and we saw these babies with deformity, I've been in practice now almost 30 years. And I've seen things that no one should have to see. And I've been places, very classified places, that no human being should ever have to see. But I can tell you, these monstrosities are going to be the kinds of horror that's going to go on for a very long time. This is the greatest catastrophe in human history. And we'll be bringing out more information about depleted uranium. In fact, I'm going to put a depleted uranium detox program on. And yes, some of the things here can help, but we have a more comprehensive thing that we need to do. And we need to ask God's Word because He's the author of all knowledge. So I'm going to start my talk today. It's going to be in two parts. The first part is the fact that people are really wondering. They hear people like Pat Robertson saying, this is not the mark. Surely this isn't the mark of the beast. This isn't going to be the destruction of Christianity and so on. This is, a rehearsal. It's down the road. Don't worry. Don't sweat it. Well, there's a couple of horrible mistruths that are being taught by the church. The first one is the once saved, always saved. The second one, and these are not open, by the way, to discussion. If you want to argue with me, what you need to do is argue face down with the carpet and your Creator, not with me. Okay? Argue with the carpet. The carpet won't talk back to you. The second one is the rapture. And I've had discussions with many people about the rapture. And I had one lady come up to speak to me after a conference in Dallas, Texas, and there were about 700 and some people there. And the Lord convicted me, and I'm a real stubborn head. If you think I'm a real holy man, you better think again. Think more of Anakin Skywalker that didn't go to Darth Sidious. I very nearly went to the dark side. So I hate it when people try to set me up as a good man. And this is again spontaneous, but I'm going to tell you the story. When I spoke in Des Moines, Iowa, at the end I gave an altar call. And we had 6 men stand up. And one of them was really tall. Like, don't be honest, I'm 5'9" on a good day. And this guy must have been like almost 7 foot tall. He was big. And he had shoulders on him like that, like a doorway. And he had a big red lumberjack jacket, and the guy looked like he was in serious shape, right? So he comes up, and he's kind of quivering, and he wants to get saved. And he has this little tiny voice. And all of a sudden, after we prayed with him, this barreling voice came out of him like, how can I say it? The rushing voice of 100 demons with a double bass baritone from the bottom of a 400-foot pit is what it sounded like. And immediately 6 of the men, the biggest guys, grabbed him and threw him on the floor because they were afraid of him. And the things that came out of his mouth, I can tell you, I've worked in emergency and trauma, and I've seen lots of things that are demonic. So if doctors try to tell you it doesn't happen, they're just fools, okay? It's not open to discussion. It's real. Whether you're an agnostic doctor or whatever, it happens. So after about 15 minutes, these guys are starting to get tired trying to hold this guy down because he's bucking and jumping around on the floor. I said, get over here, Deagle. And I'm thinking, okay. And of course, when I pray, I hear God's voice speak directly back to me because I carry on a conversation. I said, Lord, I don't know what to do. The Lord said, I know. Like I don't know what to do now, although I'm hearing His voice. And the Lord said, put your hands on him. And I'm putting my hands on him with my fingers in because he's actually biting the air and cursing and swearing in words that I've never heard before. And I figured he was going to bite my fingers off. So I said, Lord, what do I do? And the Lord said, you tell him who he is in my kingdom, and it'll come out of him. So I start praying and talking to him, and I wasn't taking real serious authority. I was saying, I'm sort of, and after a few minutes, this voice comes in, I know you, Dr. Deagle. You are an evil man. And I said, Lord, what do I do? The Lord said, agree with him. But I'm covered by the blood of Yeshua HaMashiach, and I speak with the authority of the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Amen. And if you knew my history, you knew how far I had gone to the pit of hell and how much I've walked back. That's why when people hear my testimony, like when I spoke before the Capitol building in Denver, 8 years ago now at the anniversary of Roe versus Wade, I had 6 women from now break their signs and fall down on the concrete steps in front of the Capitol building in Denver and ask to receive Jesus right there. While they were protesting and spitting and cursing at me. And what you need to know today, whether you're one of the 2 government agents that's here, or the one who's wavering and doesn't know if Jesus is really real or even needs him. Do I need health insurance? I don't know. What's the price? The price is God doesn't want a sacrifice of praise. He doesn't want you to do a lot of good works. In fact, the worst good work is one that you do in your own eyes. And the masters of light and darkness are the ones that I get the most support when I travel around the country, speaking in whatever churches, whether it was the Catholic churches or the Protestant churches. The high-level Masons always came to me and said, "You are such a wonderful man. You'll just be like Anakin Skywalker," I'm paraphrasing. Being both a very good man and a very evil man, beyond the imagination of those sheeple out there that don't understand good and evil. So when you see people do great works of good, also look to see if they have great works of evil, because they're your overlords. What you have to understand is, I am a servant of the Most High God, and I'm coming here today because I'm a dead man walking. People ask, why am I alive? I'm alive because it's not the appointed time. Just like our servant, Colonel Craig Roberts, and Joan Vian, and Dave Van Kleist, and Joyce Riley, and Pastor Butch Pa, and all the other believers who are going to become the tribulation saints. Now, what I've done, I said, Lord, what should I give the people? Because I asked the Lord, should I rewrite these books, Clay and Iron, a guidepost to the end times, or Abortion to Armageddon? The Lord said, no, it's not the time for you to rewrite them. I said, what should I do? And the Lord said, give them your lecture. It's 108 slides in PowerPoint with the 2 prayers, but give them their inheritance. And you know what that is? That's the prayer of the 12 stones. And I received this in 10 minutes as I was preparing, believe it or not, back in May of 2000 for a conference at Living Waters Fellowship in Minnesota, St. Paul, Minnesota. I am not the author of these words. Don't think that I'm just so clever. It's too bad I'm not like him and smart. Guess what? My 12-year-old daughter has some of the most profound things in the world, and she has Down syndrome. Because she's filled with the same Holy Spirit that said, let there be light, as the one in you. So don't look on someone else and say, who should speak against these horrors with communist Chinese putting things pre-placement in America? Who's speaking against these abominations of abortion and genetic engineering? If you don't, the very first of those who are outside the New Jerusalem are the cowards. There are no silent heroes. And this is not optional. This is not optional. You have to understand, it's not a matter, well, I can just be kind of like an intellectual agnostic and keep my head down and I'll be okay. No. And if you're a military here, or you happen to be one of those 2 government agents that are here, what you have to understand is you actually, on the devil's menu, are the first 2 hors d'oeuvres to be eaten on the menu. Because you know and serve the big Satan that's ruling over earth. You're not the last on the menu, so selling out is not an option either. And the reason why they want someone like me alive, or Pastor Butch, or any of the other speakers here, or anybody on Genesis or the other networks like RBN, is for 2 reasons. One, they respect those who come against them, number one, but more importantly, they want us to shake the tree to find out who will come to these conferences, who will buy the books and tapes, who will go on the internet. They're building databases, and I'm going to show you the technical details. This is not the psychotic wanderings of a doctor. I'm going to give you chip numbers, places, and details that will rock your world. And I don't care if you've been a Christian for 70 years or 7 seconds. I want you to get a conviction in your heart today, no matter where you are, that every moment is a moment that can be lost and you can go to hell. If you don't comprehend and perceive, if you don't work out your salvation in fear and trembling, you don't have it. So face that reality, people. The message I have today is not a nice one. And I asked the Lord, said, why am I going down there? And the Lord said, you're going down there to be mocked. I said, why? I don't like being spat on or mocked. Some people will even be real nice to me here. But in their spirit, they may not comprehend the authority by which I've been sent here. This is not funny. And it's not just being worried about physical death, because I'm not. People have to understand, in my own flesh, my flesh says, Deagle, you're stupid. What are you going down there to West Virginia? Don't you understand how dangerous this is, all the information? I'm only releasing a tiny amount of the information that I know. Do you have any idea how dead I could be? But I, like Jeremiah said, though I wish I could be silent, the word of the Lord burns in my bosom, and because I have been given the compassion of the Holy One of Israel, I'm here for you. It's not the compassion of a man. My flesh says, get on a plane, shut up, and go home. So let's start our talk. That came from the Lord, by the way, otherwise it would have been halfway through this. The mark is a medical procedure. Now, I want to give you an analogy so you won't go away from here, like it says in the book of James, not knowing your own countenance. The national ID is like, and I'm going to give you an analogy so you understand this clearly, and you can use it as a point of explaining to other people. I'm a surgeon. If you sign a consent form saying, Dr. Deagle, if in your judgment you think you need to cut off my right leg to save my toenails, you can do it. So when you sign that blanket consent by accepting the national ID, the devil, who is the surgeon, says, by the way, when you're out on the table, I can just stick this big needle up through the cribriform plate through your nose and stick a gallium arsenide chip in your anterior lobes. Because I have the right. He signed the thing right there, man. He didn't fight against this. He didn't speak out. I can take his kid and make them a sex slave, cyborg. I can go and genetically engineer his children in a laboratory so he can't reproduce. So his children will be not able to reproduce by law because they have to have polar body analysis of the genetics of their children 5 or 10 years from now. And no one will eat food grown on their own farm, just like the feudal lords in the Middle Ages. If you didn't have a license, you couldn't go hunt in the king's wood. You couldn't grow even certain vegetables. Why do you think the globalists want to take away the World Trade Organization, again going back to Joan Vian, with the Codex Alimentarium? Because they're ready to do some evil things to you. So if you don't want them to take it away, fight against it. No matter what you can say about Americans, there's one thing, and I'm an American born in Detroit, that I admire. Americans have a backbone. And when push comes to shove, and I mentioned this to Dave before we started, the world is like a big tent, and America's like the pole up the center. And Satan wants to collapse that tent. All he has to do is take out the pole. And he's doing it step by step with what I call Satan vision and these horror movies to kind of psychotrauma of Terry Schindler, Schiavo's death, and it goes on, sending your troops back with deformed babies and say, that's okay, just go and adopt. No, your genetics are screwed up, so don't have kids. So blow your brains, though. That's good, too. It's therapeutic. So the first part of my talk is to tell you that this is a consent form. If you don't say no, don't complain when the devil takes your soul into the bowels of the ninth ring of Hades. If you don't say, this is, as Pastor Butch this is no farther. This is as far as you go. This is the line in the sand. If you don't say no, don't be surprised in 2 or 3 years when everybody like cyborg robots are reporting. It says have a sustainable planet, in the words of Joan Vian. We have to abort everybody at 60 years of age. Abort, I thought that was euthanasia. Well, how about going to incineration or termination chambers like the Chinese with these little trucks? They call them termination trucks. They grab you by the back of the neck, shove you in, give you a Venus. Then they kind of sit you in the little mobile incinerator. Then they give your family the ashes in a little urn, and they charge you for the bullet. They charge you for the bullet in China. In 1978, this is after another long story which I can't get into, I was accepted to do a PhD neurology residency at UCLA with Dr. Wallace Tortolot. And it turns out I want to work on the World MS Tissue Repository, where they were freezing brain tissue and doing electron microscopy in immune studies. And the fellow I was going to work under was Dr. Wallace Tortolot. Well, 3 of the 5 projects, and I was actually there, touched the equipment, saw the prisoners getting the chips in their brain and the wires. So if you want technical details, this is not a dream. This is a fact, okay? This is incredibly classified. I don't care, all right? Even if you shoot a bullet at me now, the Lord will stop that bullet right there, 4 inches from my nose. It doesn't matter. Until the appointed time, I cannot die. And the same with you. 3 of those 5 projects were NSA CIA cyborg brain electrodes. And what they did is they custom made what's called a stereotactic CT implanter to put palladium and platinum wires into various nuclei in their brain. And this goes back a long way. Some of this research goes back to British research literally over 100 years ago for brain stimulation in Britain and elsewhere, and Cajal's work in Spain. But they did work on this in Tavistock, England, and in other places, and worked on things like ELF effects on behavior in Japan back in the 20s and 30s. Adolf Hitler was working on this stuff. In fact, his scientists that were the rocket scientists made NASA, and his horror brain control people became the heads of the people that later became the later projects like MK Ultra and all the other mind control projects. That, by the way, our vice president was the director of one of the most horrifying of these for many, many years. Okay? Dick Cheney. This is real. In 1971, my professor, who I trained under in infectious disease, was working at a campus doing bioweapons research. He worked in Bethesda, but also worked on a classified facility on Rutgers campus that's, of course, no longer there. Because a virus got out of containment one day. It was a T virus that one canister would paralyze at 40,000 feet, paralyzing the neuromuscular junction, and you'd suffocate 4.5 million people if you put it in the density of the Boston to Washington area. The virus got out of class 4 bioweapon safety, and what it did is all of the facility automatically locked down, and all of his friends were incinerated at 2,000 degrees, and they took everything and put it in a hole in the ground and concrete capped it off, right there. They did this for a reason. Luckily, it was the only day in 10 years that he was sick, and he told me, and the tears streaming down his face, I'm going to tell you, this is a fact. They have done so much we call defensive research to make the weapons to kill most of humanity for decades. And the World Health Organization, UNESCO, the National Institute for Allergy and Infectious Disease are completely behind it. The latest of this horror is the avian flu and the Marburg virus. The avian flu, and if you go to my website, NutriMedical, you can listen to the archives with Henry Nyman. I pulled up the actual data. This virus has the PB2 gene from the 1918 H1N1 flu that's a form of Ebola-type flu that you hemorrhage into your lungs, and then all of your immune system collapses, and literally all your cells explode. Really. And then they've added a new gene called the NS1 gene that has 4 deletions of 4 amino acids. So basically what it does is this gene completely bypasses the mammalian immune system. And last week, this is how close this is happening. You have to understand this is here. This is not a rehearsal. This is now. In Qinghai province, China, that virus transformed, we think, to stage 6. And you'll hear it right on the archives if you listen to the program. Stage 6 is pandemic strain. It hasn't gone out yet that we know of. But they blacked out China and said, well, 121 people in the village around Qinghai, a game reserve, the Chinese incinerated the bodies and wouldn't let the World Health Organization do genetic analysis on it or send it to an independent lab. They thought at first there were 500 dead birds. The day before I left, the number was up to 8,000, and it killed 18 other species because it kills all mammals. All mammals. Dogs, cats, horses, geese, ferrets, foxes, civet cats, tigers, domestic cats, any mammal. And it completely bypasses the immune system. The Marburg virus, you hear about the Marburg virus in Angola? This attack last year started when they had a vaccine program sponsored by the World Health Organization. They vaccinated children under 1 year of age, and all of the children died of Marburg that was genetically engineered with genes from Ebola. And then all their health providers died, and that's not finished yet. This virus is so deadly that it doesn't even get the chance to travel. But the thing that's really bad with the avian flu is you can travel for 4 or 5 days and then spike a high fever and all of a sudden die with meningitis in 3 hours. Just get collapsed. It's neurotropic. It goes right to your brain. Or you can develop a very rapid pneumonia and literally hemorrhage into your lung and suffocate in your own blood in your lungs. That's how bad it is. This is an Ebola flu. And so one of the things the Lord put on my heart was to make a first-line defense kit. And again, we don't have any perfect defenses. Don't take the vaccine. It's useless or dangerous, number one. And even Dr. Nyman has talked about the science that could be done to make a safe vaccine, and they won't use it. In fact, he said to me that the World Health Organization scientists have purposely hidden on their hard drives the data to prove that the genes were recombining, not just reassorting or shuffling. And that they know this was going to transform because they re-released the genetically engineered virus to now over 13 species of migratory birds that meet at Qinghai and go east-west all the way from Europe to Japan and all the way from Russia right to Indonesia. We have a problem. The genie's out of the bottle. And it's not 6 months or 2 years away, as Dr. Nyman said. It's now. God help us when it hits us. From 1988 to 94, I was the doctor for Pratt & Whitney Jet Aircraft's parts plant. When I came back from Georgia, I worked, believe it or not, in Nova Scotia. And you think, oh, little Canada, they don't do anything there, the CIA. It's one of their favorite places. I was the first doctor there. I said, oh, it's wonderful, you're an occupational doctor. I go in and see all these robotic things making jet aircrafts for the Pratt & Whitney engines. That's a front. They were making directed energy weapons. And they had a lot of accidents, and guess who's called all hours of the day and night to take care of the horrors of what they did to each other. These weapons were used in the first Gulf War, and they're right over in Fallujah right now. They have disruptor weapons that can hit you and knock you to the ground confused or make you agitated. And they have weapons, what they had there was what's called a DNA harmonic weapon that would hit you with 2 sideband microwave frequencies and make your cells die within a matter of minutes and literally have you turn to slime by releasing the peroxisomes and lysosomes in your cells. This is real. You would not believe what we have as weapons. And they tested on our soldiers and our military over there, just like the DU. That's why, well, after we don't provide them with health care, we'll monitor how fast they die. We need to stop this DU. And the nanoparticles, listen to the talk with Rosalie Bertel from last week on the program. From 94 to 95, I worked at CCOM, the Colorado Center for Achmed in Colorado Springs at St. Francis Hospital. We had contracts for basically everything bad and evil, right from the Project Echelon, NORAD, Falcon Air Force Base, all of the U.S. Space Command, all of the most advanced microchip, including the Atmel Corporation ferromagnetic chip that's a EMP weapon-proof for satellites, military personnel, all the targeting of the space-based weapons, which I'll give you a quick list so it's on the record. We have gamma neutron lasers in space that can hit a target and wipe out a city like Beijing in a matter of seconds without shooting one bullet or launching one nuclear weapon. Space is completely weaponized with nuclear weapons and missiles that we can hit any target in 90 seconds. We have EMP weapons that are satellite launched, space launched in terms of missiles. We have a whole array of bioweapons that are in cryo in space right now. And we have harmonic weapons that are tied to the ground wave Earth network, or GWEN, and the HARP system to totally affect the world. So people would say, what are all these contrails? There are multiple projects going on. But they're turning the air into a plasma. What it means, it conducts electricity and electromagnetic waves to alter the climate, alter behavior, and to destroy our immune system, so a lot of us will die when they do release these weapons. And of course, we took care of the Cray system, the Cray 4 and the Cray 5, and because I have advanced technical training before I went into medicine, I go down there because I'm a chemist and a biochemist as well as worked on mainframe computers. So I'd ask them all these technical questions, and what I'd find is in each branch, they want to know what everybody else is doing because they're very compartmentalized. So I'm giving you the compressed version. In 1997 and 99, I worked at Rocky Mountain Occupational Medicine under Reserve Admiral John Hughes, and I was the point man for the FEMA, for the Center for Disease Control, for Operation Top Off in Dark Winter. And we did simulations, both on a supercomputer in Boulder, simulation in computer, basically, of smallpox in a so-called terrorist coming from Cairo, Egypt, to Oklahoma City and trying to see how many dead. And of course, in the computer modeling that we did, it showed 93 cities with 93 million people affected in 90 days. That's just in a computer model. But then we did live simulations of the activation of the EMS system with the Performing Arts Center, with the infectious disease that was the cause of the death in the Black Plague, Yersinia pestis, and pneumonic plague. And what we did is we tried to have the EMTs and the hazmat officers go to the local hospitals and see if they could figure out what happened. We did the same thing with anthrax on 17th Avenue. And we failed so miserably, and of course this information went back to the globalists, we couldn't control it before it killed it. It's like, have you ever been in a brush fire where the fire basically only burns out when there's no more grass? Well, that's what these plagues are going to be like. And we realized that. From 1994 to 2000, basically, I saw firsthand evidence. I've actually been in the supercomputer array for the system that will be the Mark in Falcon Air Force Base. There's lots of other big computers like the Beast system in Brussels. I've been down underground and actually attached the gallium arsenide supercomputers and the fiber optic network underground. I've been there. This is a low Earth orbit satellite. It's tied to your cell towers all over the place. It's the same chipset. They can track these little tiny chips. The ones that they have are a lower level of technology than they have. They just have the ones the size of rice. They've got ones so small you can't see them. 20th of the size of a human hair. Made right in Austin, Texas. They have them. They say it's used for military communications and sat phone. It isn't. That's one of their applications. And they gave, by the way, a uplink tower in China and an uplink tower in Russia, right? And while they did it in December of 1993, they gave targeting technology to the People's Republican Army of China and to the Russian Strategic Rocket Forces to target American cities because they couldn't do it accurately. They did a test back in the late 80s after Glasnost and Perestroika and said, dang it, you'd missed Chicago. We better make sure you can hit it bang on. So under Clinton, they actually transferred the technology. And so I would get enraged, and I talked to these scientists and military personnel. I said, you guys got to stop this. And they get all agitated. After a while, they say, Deagle, you're right. We better do something about this. I said, you guys don't have a systematic leak of intelligence. You got a damn pipeline. You got a 60-foot wide, rushing, raging river of technology going over to these countries, like micronuclear technology to the Chinese. Everything you think of. Gene cloning, cyborg research with the Russians at the Engelhardt Institute and the Moscow Institute for Biological Research. This stuff has been going on for decades and decades while they're playing this little game of, I'm big, ugly Russian bear. Don't believe it. They're playing games. Russia is set up as a dialectic. The world idea is tied to the cell towers, the smart highways, which you see being built everywhere. They want to get rid of the small communities. They want to get rid of your jobs. In fact, I think Bush slipped, being dyslexic, and he said, one of our best exports is your jobs. Second now, I think you read the wrong speech here. Your exports, yeah, and you have to know this. In 2003, directly into the State Department, they sent a delegation over to China to make sure that what they call China Mart, Walmart, set up 7,000 prison factories inside the prisons in the Laodai camps. They have 20,000 prisons in the Laodai system. If you have one page of the Bible, you go to prison for life. And the first thing they do is draw your blood and do a histocompatibility locus antigen tissue type so they can whip your kidneys out of you and sell them through the black market to whoever needs them, or your eyes out of your head. That's the first thing. Okay? That's most favored satanic nation status. This is a DNA biochip. This is developed by Argonne Laboratories in Chicago, a number of universities and hospitals around the University of Chicago, Purdue University that you heard things about earlier today, and of course the Oak Ridge National Lab in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. This can take 1 microdrop of your blood, that's 100th of a drop of blood, and in 5 minutes do 100,000 gene analyses and subtype you compared to every other human on the planet in 5 minutes with a chip that cost $1.40 in 1999 and now is under 40 cents. So I'm going to show you the technical details of how they're going to type everybody. They have IBM, which is a front for 4,000 globalist corporations making chips like Applied Digital Solutions that makes the, they call the Digital Fallen Angel chip. I put the fallen in there. ADS. That's one. The one I was shown was from HealthCard Technologies at Madison, Wisconsin. I actually had the chip 7 years ago. And the one that's injected, that's made of Pyrex and titanium. 4 megabytes of flash memory in the card, satellite tracked, password protected, can be detected up to, the data can be dumped up to 120 centimeters, can be tracked from space down to 0.2 microwatts. So this is a little term I did because I like to kind of summarize it. I call it the one. So this is not in a reference anywhere. Omniscient nanotech encoding. And of course, you have to understand that a lot of these people are into nanotechnology. The Satanists are the main ones funding nanotech because they see it's making this new satanic world. The Luciferian ideas. This is the kind of structure that they're going to make to the ID. And I was actually told this by a guy after I spoke at Catherine Kuhlman's church in the fall of '98. He gave me the actual patent for the Mark of the Beast. The actual patent. And he said in '95 he presented this to Lockheed Martin and Lucent Technologies. So, oh, thanks a lot. We already got it. but you came up with a few good ideas, so we'll put some twists. We're not going to pay you. Okay? It's tied to the cell towers, and people say, wonder why they're moving in 2006 to cell phones that have a GPS chip, not a triangulation chip. It's because it's the same as the mark of the beast. The chip they want to put in you is the same chipset as in these cell phones. 6 digits. What they do is they break the world into 66 big blocks, 66 smaller blocks, and 66 smaller blocks. It's called a mesh barcode. If you actually go in and do a Google search, what's a mesh barcode? You'll find the system's been around for years. And there's a system called the virtual cities. And what you'll find is every city has been mapped down to the presence of every road and road sign and light and everything down to less than a tolerance of 1/100th of a centimeter. So they have a virtual map of every city on the planet now. That's why they got these darn cameras everywhere. I don't look like Al-Qaeda. When I drove back and forth before I closed my practice in Denver last year, I got real aggravated when it costs a couple $1 million to put thermal cameras and cameras in every direction as I'm driving back from my office to Highlands Ranch, and there's at least 20 intersections and roadways that have cameras, and I'm only driving to like 4 miles. I don't look like Al-Qaeda. Do you look like Al-Qaeda? It's LCIADA. 6 digits, your birth date, international dating system, of course, we're moving to a global government, and 6 digits for your DNA biochip, so they know which organs to whip out of you. Because part of your tag, this is an opening code for the biometric tracking, because remember, the mark is 3 things. Number 1, it's the tracker chip. Number 2, it is a database of all your DNA, your retinal scan. It's passed this law already, and you have to understand this. If you're a Canadian, if you're a European, and you want to cross into American space by January 2008, you have to go down to a U.S. consulate anywhere in the world, or you don't cross that border without a blood draw to get your DNA subtyped for the world database in America with DARPA. You have to have a retinal scan. You have to have a 10-finger digital fingerprint put into the DARPA database. You have to have facial biometrics. And anything else they decide to add later, it goes in the database. And that database, by the way, for all you American citizens, is shared with Mexico and Canada and anybody else in the free trade of the Americas. This is here now. Globalist plan. March of 1997, I visited Human Life International. I was speaking against fetal tissue research for Parkinson's disease in Zurich, talking about the globalist plans under Gorbachev and the Gorbachev Foundation, the Green Cross. And, of course, all these vaccine programs. You know that the Gorbachev Foundation at that time was the largest supplier non-government organization in 170 countries for vaccines. And guess who's the biggest contributor now? Bill and Melinda Gates, turning bytes into nanomachines and chips in your body. Think of it. They gave me 6 inches of documents proving that what I'd already known, because they tried to recruit me back in '74 to go to Uganda to work on these viruses that became AIDS, the retroviruses, that proved that the vaccine was being given to women in sub-Saharan Africa every month to sterilize them, to make them develop antibodies against their placenta so they couldn't hold a baby. And the AIDS virus was specifically made in labs in Uganda by both Russian and American scientists, with Canadians and Europeans and others working in the labs to kill 185 million excess sub-Saharan Africans. That's why you'll see a disproportionate large number of the dead are black. And there are other versions of the virus. They got a souped-up version that's out now that can kill you in 3 or 4 months of the AIDS. So they've been bioengineering plagues, and they're going to release them. In fact, they gave me 6 inches of documents, which I can't go over tonight because I have so much information. And these vaccines, they've got 30 laboratories in America under Operation BioShield. Oh my God. Don't take any vaccines, for God's sake. The World Health Organization, you got to understand what's going on with this latest thing with the avian flu and the genes. But they released the 1957 pandemic strain last year under the orders of the American College of Clinical Pathologists. Oh, whoops, we sent it to 4,000 labs worldwide in 18 countries. And not just one place, not Meridian Biotech only. All kinds of suppliers that had the pandemic virus that killed 10 million people. What? And you know who woke up to it? was a biological lab in Winnipeg, Manitoba. Canadians said, hey, that doesn't make sense. And then all of a sudden, out of the woodwork, came a bunch of other virologists and said, oh my God, are they trying to kill us all? They were sending it with biosafety level 2, which is worthless, when it should have been level 4, and should have been locked containers. And then of course, where is your virus? Oh, I don't know. I think it's out in the tarmac, I don't know. I think it's down with the luggage when it arrived in Beirut. I'm not kidding you. These are facts. I took care also of the first child shot in Columbine, and I also was the doctor for the fire department, for the Jefferson County Fire Department. The guy running the truck into the building came in and had a nervous breakdown in my office the next day, the firefighter running the truck, because he couldn't save that man because he was told by the Jefferson County Sheriff's Department, Sheriff Stone, that if you run that ladder into that second floor window, we're going to shoot to kill on the spot. So one of the grounds workers got one of these little Bobcat trucks, raised the bucket up and said, shoot me, see how good a shot you are. And he ran into the school and saved some of the kids. The kids were being killed, a lot of them, by the SWAT team. There was at least 7 kids, including Daniel Rohrbaugh, that died at the hands of the Denver SWAT team that takes 30 to 40 minutes to get their gear on, and they were within 20 minutes of the call at that school because they had death education in that school for 13 years before Columbine. I interviewed all those kids, and I have stuff that's so explosive the kids told me, don't publish this, they'll kill us. They'll come back after us. They had 240 hours of videotape in that school of kids doing ritual sacrifice and killing other kids in the school that the principal knew about. And they still have possession of these tapes of kids going around with toy guns and killing everyone in the school up to 2 years before Columbine, the same kids, Klebold and Harris. And one of the parents, I think it's Harris, his father was in the Air Force, they debriefed him in a military base in Texas for 2 weeks after Columbine. This was all a planned, marked school. This is all completely massaged. I'm telling you right now, the devil took a big axe and he goes, ah. And he scratched across America this way. And everywhere he scratched were schools that had kids that died. And then he went like this, and he scratched the other way. And he killed another bunch of kids the other way. A big X on America. Just like when you look up at the contrails, just say, dang, that looks like an X up there. Over my city. I think that X is right over my house, actually. I'm not kidding you. And if people don't believe in Satan, they did a survey a few years ago. 94% of people in America believe in the devil. 87% believe in God. I figure 7% is in big trouble. They had 42 federal and state agencies, including one of the senior Joint Chiefs of Staff, right in the state, able to go right down by the scene within 45 minutes. And they stood out there for hours while the killing went on. Oklahoma City, my boss at the time, Major George Schwinder, was supposed to be doing the exit exam in the forensic munitions team that came back from Oklahoma City from the Alpha Premier building. Now you wonder, is this Deagle cloned? I got Deagle number 5 up there. No, there must be at least 10 of them. All of these things happen because the Lord sets the appointments. Like he does for you. All you have to do is submit, and he'll put you in those places where you're supposed to be. You think, and I'm only giving you like a tenth, maybe a 12th of all of the things that have happened, just some of the top ones. So you understand that my God, just like King Nebuchadnezzar said to Daniel, my God is God. And there is no other God. So when they came back, one of the 5 guys, I went into the room and he's all pale. I said, because you try to pick up the signs when somebody comes into the exam room and he's sweating, he's shaking. I'm thinking, this guy's military. What the hell is he doing shaking? And his pupils were little pinpoints. And he looked at me, doctor, will you check me out? And I said, sure, I'll check you out. I'm very thorough. I said, I'll as long as I have to. I said, no, you check me out. I said, tell me what's going on. I'm an old trauma doctor, ER. I'm the guy that sticks the chest tube in, retracts your ribs, clamps your aorta off so you don't bleed to death, clamps off your arm after you get ripped out, thrown into the car, whatever. I'm a burn doctor, trauma doctor, surgeon, okay? I said, look, cut the bull. What are you here for? He said, I got radiation injury. I said, come on, I'm a chemist. I finished my PhD in molecular biology, bacteriology, although I didn't write the thesis because I went into medicine. I did it in 5 months at age 20. I said, I'm a biochemist. I said, you're not going to tell me anything about explosives or chemicals that I don't know. I said, you had an ANFO bomb there, this is not going to have radiation. He said, no, you don't understand. I said, no, you don't understand. If you don't tell me what's going on, I'm not going to tell you at all. So he said, well, he said, you're not going to put my name in the report? I said, of course not. I said, but if I find something that you're exposed to that could affect you or your buddies, I've got to make sure I do the right testing and help you guys, because I swore an oath that primum non nocere, I would do no harm. And I serve the Most High God first, which is why all, not some, all of the doctors in the Old Testament first were servants of the Most High God as the sons of Aaron, which I am, first, before God would let them near his children. And the reason why your healthcare system is such a horrifying mess is because you've got every single demonic, evil, awful thing. And every medical school in this country is run by Satanists. Everyone. Every medical board in every state in this country is run by Satanists. Every law faculty, every bar association reports to the Royal Temple Bar in London, England. Every university, every PhD program, every advanced study program is satanic. If you don't want to believe that, well, sorry. I'm just like telling you, there's a cliff over 4 feet from your foot there, man. You walk 4 feet that way, and I'm going to hear a splat in about 40 seconds. That's what I'm telling you. You got to grasp this. I've been on the dark side. I've seen what's going on, man. I'll tell you, it's darker than dark. It's the dark you can touch. So this guy, he spilled the beans for 2 hours. They said, Deagle, what are you doing in there? I'm really being thorough. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I'm listening. I asked a million questions, and I got a really, although I've met a lot of people today, and I'm so tired, I don't remember everybody's first name, so you have to repeat it a few times. Those things go by me, but if you tell me a 20-digit number, I'll probably remember it. So I got a real good memory. So I asked this guy a million questions, and what it came down to was they removed 2 unexploded baseball-sized nukes placed in the inside pillars. There were dozens and dozens of pillars that had placer charges on it with wires. They removed a C4 pineapple the size of one of those big Hawaiian pineapples, not the little suckers. I'm talking about those big, real fat Hawaiian pineapples. And he held his hands up like this, like baseball, and then he started quivering. I said, look, what happened? He said, well, look, they blew pillars and turned them to dust, way far away from the so-called Ryder truck. And then he drew out a picture on a paper and said the hole, because they were the same team that went to Khobar Towers in Riyadh, was 7 times more ANFO in the bomb in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. And all it did, and I'm going to repeat this for people, all it did was blow in the windows in the building. And believe me, the concrete standards over there ain't good. It's not like built in America. The Alfred P. Murrah building was one of the most solidly built federal buildings in American history. Just like if you went and studied architecture in the last 30 years, do you know what building you got tested on? The WTC, which had the control struts and the largest girders ever built and the most advanced engineering system to make the strongest building to take the largest earthquake that the world can dish out. And they're trying to tell us that 2 jet aircraft went into those buildings and took them down. I'm going to tell you that 5 weeks later, though 7 floors down, when those girders hit the bedrock, the temperature was 2,500 degrees by satellite because it was nuclear. The government did it. If you don't have it yet, you will believe when your ankles are deep in the lake of fire. So I met, back in 2001, I was going to an infectious disease conference. I met Dr. Jay Reddington at a bioterrorism conference in Denver. And he said, hey, join us for lunch. We're going to meet with the FBI director and the CDC director for bioterrorism nationally. I said, oh, great. And believe me, don't say, like my mother says, don't let him have the reins. If you give him that microphone, man, you're going to have, it's like clutching it away from the dead. He's going to have that death grip on it. I got a chance to talk to these guys and ask them questions. And after I was in their confidence, the FBI director leans on the seat and says, there's going to be an attack with absolute certainty. 95% of our intelligence says within 24 months it's going to kill 50 to 500,000, bring in national martial law, the national ID that within months they're going to implant in every American citizen. We're not talking on, okay? So I fired back some stuff because I knew all this classified stuff, and he starts saying, well, this guy must know lots of stuff. He's deep in the system. He's in the big blue machine. So he repeated it 3 times, and for the next almost 2 hours, I asked him questions, and here's the summary. They were planning airplanes into the WTC. They were planning bioweapons. They were planning suitcase nukes. They were planning dirty bombs. They even named the towers in their simulations. And the fact that it was going to go on between July and September before. This is March 1. This is all known. One of my friends was Colonel Lynn Wills, Chief Missile Command Officer of Strategic Defense Command. And believe me, I've carved more than one roast in our kitchen, in our dining room in Colorado Springs when Colonel Wills has been over. He's the guy that him or his men back in 95 called the president when there's incoming missiles and they launch what's called Huey. Huey is an acronym for their launch on command sequence that activates their submarine-launched nuclear missiles and our ground-based missiles to kind of fry the other side, Don't hit us, we'll nuke you. You got to understand, NORAD doesn't sign off for 30 seconds, let alone for, an hour and a half? This is ridiculous. The entire thing was taken over by Dick Cheney, Dick Cheney, the other son of the devil. And by the way, the name Chertov means, in Russian, son of the devil. Did you know that? April 19th, a day with infamy. This is an ancient Babylonian Sumerian date. That is one where they used to have Baal worship and Moloch, where they would take their children after they had sexual activity at the last feast 9 months earlier that were conceived by having all kinds of incestuous and group sex in ancient Israel or Canaan, whatever. And then they would go on the 19th and they'd take all the babies and put them in the arms of this fiery bull. Why do you think it's so important to them? Birth date of Hitler. And they had to rush to make sure they got Ratsy. Yeah. Ratzinger. Ooh. Man, let me tell you look at his eyes and he's got the glint of the Emperor Darcidius. Okay? Waco, Oklahoma City, the 19th. In fact, Klebold and Harris were mind-controlled and specifically were trying to do it on the 19th. Geez, we can't do it on the 19th. We might as well do it when Hitler died in the bunker on the 20th. The rulers of the fallen earth, and I don't care if you here are saved or not, and I'm not to save anybody. I asked the Lord, I said, Lord, what am I going down there for? The Lord said, you're a carpenter with a little carpenter's belt, chunky carpenter, by the way. I've eaten a lot of high-calorie stress, being persecuted. Let me tell you, if you don't think there's a devil, and you don't think there's God, you start doing something to piss him off, the devil, and you're going to find out real quick he's real. Oh, doggies. You're going to find out fast. Well, all of the governments are satanic. It doesn't matter if you're a Buddhist or a Christian or whatever you are. You have to understand, and if you're an agnostic, the guys that run this world, they're very religious. They're very religious sodomites, bisexual, just like our current president. Why do you think we have Gannon in there? This is not the tip of the iceberg. This is really, really evil, man. This is beyond treason. This is beyond anybody's imagination. If you knew the whole extent of this. All secret agencies in America, every FBI was founded, every Mossad, every MI6, every agency in every country is a secret organization that's satanic. Look at the movie National Treasure. You've got to understand that whether it's in the South or the North, with a civil war, or any other war, they've all been engineered by the dark hand of Satan and his minions. And now the current one is Baron Guy de Rothschild, Pindar. And his name means the penis of the dragon. He's the one over the Council of 13. You have to understand these people are real, flesh and blood monsters. That their sacrament is to drink the blood of newborn babies and eat their flesh live. And you wonder about the 800,000 people that have disappeared around the world. They're sold into slavery, and we have Condi Rice saying this is such a terrible thing. We're not making, we shouldn't say it, we're not making profit from it. This is unbelievable. It's unbelievable. And they all worship Satan and the Nephilim. And if you don't think that the Nephilim are not here now, think again. Now I'm going to replace, if you watch the X-Files or television, replace every word where you see alien, like with Steven Spielberg, for fallen angels. Without getting into another whole discussion, you have to understand these things technically and technologically are transferring technology to us that we have no business having. This is real. And as it says, so as in the days of Noah, the reason why God destroyed it all is because the demon seed had affected everybody except for the 8. So if you go over to Mount Ararat and everything, and you hear about the traditions that were passed down to the people in Turkey, you'll say, yeah, they said that's the mountain of the 8. And the reason for it is, God said they were perfect in their generation. Well, Noah liked a little bit of the wine. So he wasn't exactly perfect. And I imagine at times when he whacked his hand trying to drive one of those ironwood nails in, he said a few little words that were not exactly godly. So what you have to understand is he was perfect because he didn't have the demon seed. They want all of you dead, and they want to replace you with hybrids. And that's why my ministry is called Clay and Iron Ministries. You have to understand this is not imaginary. They're doing things that you can't imagine, but they are real. And their plans, in fact, you can go right on. I'm going to show you some more information here. It's called convergent technology, and it's been in the military for years. They've got the actual documents. They want to make cyborg soldiers that are genetically engineered with genes, literally, listen to this, from jackals, so they can make androgenic females that are, let's say, 185 pounds. They can lift 500 to 600 pounds, run faster than the fastest Olympic athlete, jump 15 feet in the air, and sleep 2 or 3 hours a day and will follow commands exactly. And then they want to put them inside mechs. Our Air Force, by 2010, will be half remote Air Force, where they'll walk into a building, say in Atlanta, and they'll be doing a war 14,000 miles away by jet. They're doing it now in Iraq. The Japanese and Americans are making these mechs. You see all the kids, I got this mech warrior thing that's 25 feet tall. Do you know why they got your kids learning this? They want to stick a chip in their head and put them inside that mech warrior so they can take any population on Earth who wants to fight back and say, geez, did you see that mech? It flew over us at 200 miles an hour and it landed there and just smacked those 40 people just like that with one arm and then blasted them with a laser gun. If you don't think this is real, you better think again. These people want to make hell on earth, and it's coming to your channel right now. Not having to wait. We're not another generation. I actually walked through the supercomputer array, which is in Falcon Air Force Base. The gallium arsenide chips, which are made at almost 200 degrees below zero, these are molecular computers. Each one, the Cray 5, is 100,000 times faster than the Cray 4. And there's an array of hundreds of them underground. And you would not believe how many underground cities are just in America. There's 132 cities, average 5.34 cubic miles in size, up to 1.5 miles to 4 miles below ground in America. I took care of people that worked there. And you wouldn't believe them shaking and trembling when they told me about some of the genetic experiments and monstrosities that they've seen. And if you thought those babies in Iraq were monstrosities, and they are, and they scare the heck out of you, you should have heard some of the stories that I've heard. Healthcare technologies. That's only one. IBM, who, by the way, made the numbering system for the Nazis numbering system, that was an IBM computer that kept track of the Jews. Smart highways. In your state, have you got smart highways yet? They're sure doing them in Texas. Man, they're going to control you. It's going to be like, literally, the movie The Matrix. Why are all these movies coming out? They're getting you psychically prepared. If you don't respond to the evil with spiritual truth, and I'm telling you this, that's why I'm talking to also all of the other co-speakers here. You have to understand, if your sales start dropping, it's because you've scared them so much that they're paralyzed, and a 12-foot-long boa constrictor in the kitchen will just leave it alone. Don't. Get out your shovel and your gun and kill it. And first off, your protection isn't going to be your seeds or your knowledge. It's going to be into the wings of the Most High God, because I don't care if you got a berm shelter or if you're down on one of these bases a mile down. It isn't going to save you when God sends forth his angels. Our salvation, literally, the Lord told me, I will lead people who will walk through walls of fire just as Moses walked them through walls of water. You need to know our salvation is only in him. It's not in anything else. And when we're all finished tonight, we want to do an altar call. And if you've been saved for years, get resaved. Get another charge. Because you know what? We're going to have it so that the sower is going to be overtaken by the reaper. What they want to do is this. Convergent technologies, the lie of nano cyber cogno. You can actually put that in the internet and look at it. You can look at government documents. They want to have elite life extension for centuries or millennia. The Koreans announced that they can take skin cells and create clones of anybody. Of course, the ultra-wealthy will get all this stuff, and they'll have new hearts, whatever. They'll maybe grow a whole new body and then just transplant the head. Or even download their consciousness, just like some of these strange movies you see, like The Sixth Day Violation with Arnold Blackest Darkness Schwarzenegger. That's what his name means, Blackest Darkness. A product of an Austrian breeding experiment. Our next president? I don't think so. They want to have castes of elite, genetically nanocybercogno rich in the cyborg unaltered, so that it would just put a chip on us, let us die, or terminate us when we get health problems. Don't worry about health care, just incinerate at 2,000 degrees. They don't want somebody 80 years of age with a clue. Those gray hairs have been earned. They don't want older people. That's why they want to make sure you take your flu vaccine. You lose 10 billion neurons each time. Do you know that you have a 300% higher risk of getting an organic dementia if you take 3 flu vaccines after age 60? After the second one, I think I'm going to go more than 5. I'm going to go over. I'm on a roll right now. They want to terraform Titan, Mars, and the Moon. They want to make compact cities on Earth, and they want to rewild the Earth. They want to make the buffalo roam again. And by 2010, they want to have basically a cybernetic army where chips are in our military completely. Have anybody seen the movie Robots? Who's seen the movie Robots with their kid? Good. Well, they're doing this even to our children. And here's one of the things. Why be you when you can be new? Did you know that the body piercing, you say, well, how come all this body piercing occurs? I've been in practice like 30 years. All of a sudden, I started seeing people with everything, including sexual parts pierced. I said, I haven't yet seen anybody with one through here and out there, but give it time. They'll figure out a body-piercing way of doing it. And the reason is, it was sponsored by the CIA, so you get used to the idea of becoming a machine. Why do they think they have this exhibit? I think it's going around America, what's it called? Body Works, yeah. What they want to do is they want to say, you're just a machine. If you worship me, Satan, I'll make you a better machine, just like Spider-Man. And you won't surely die. You will know as God, knowing both good and evil. Does that sound familiar? Yeah, exactly. I guess Satan is not really very creative, but he sure knows how to recycle. Uplink to the matrix, knowing both good and evil. The universal biometric ID. World Electronic Phoenix Currency. This is one of the documents you can actually find. If you go looking around, you'll see. And again, they've got multiple running plans, so they keep on changing it. But ultimately, they want to do a thing called Jashin Boaz. They want to make a free trade of the Americas and then link everything up in Eurasia to the euro. And then with the world collapse, war, pestilence, the usual stuff of, globalists like to do. Have a phoenix. And of course, why they want to do this is an ancient Sumerian ceremony called the ceremony of Pahanuk, where the whole civilization is destroyed, basically except for the globalists, in their little bunkers, and then they resurrect it, and it becomes even better. Why do you hear all this stuff about Atlantis lately? It's because it's getting people mentally ready for all this stuff. All lies. And of course, they want to have these mark, which I call the multiple addressable readable cryptographic. And I was actually told this by an NSA agent who was there at Roswell and who did the cryptology for the satellite communication systems, and this is what they called it. ELF mind link, they want to link you. So if you say yes to the national ID, you guess what you're saying? You're saying to the surgeon Satan, Satan's saying, I got a legal signature here. I can stick a chip in your brain. You don't believe so? When I traveled around 6 years ago at Prophecy Club, and I mentioned it literally on one show, I had so many people bringing me their CT scans and their MRIs and their chips that were taken out of them. I had to say, please stop it. I can't fish your chip out. It's deep in your frontal lobes. Please. If you don't think this is happening, this is one of the chips called the Digital. I call it Fallen Angel chip. And of course, this is what's going on. This is Daniel chapter 2. And of course, there's two areas of the Bible that the Jews will never read. Psalm 53 and the book of Daniel, because Daniel taught the Magi. Isaiah 53, yeah. And the reason is, Daniel taught the Magi, and the Magi were the Chaldeans who were astrologers, but they knew that God of the universe was supposed to come down to these Jews in human flesh. Yeshua, which means God saves, Ha-Mashiach. It means the Father in the flesh. There's not three gods, there's one. Thus saith the Lord. Why do you think no Jews will look on you and say, you Christians are just pagans? I say, as the Lord has told me to say, come out of her, daughter of Babylon, and out of the synagogues of Satan, O hosts of Ephraim and Judah. For if you don't, you are in, present tense, the churches of the Antichrist. Babylon, Mystery Babylon the Great, and the harlots who will get the full double portion. And if you don't believe it, your pastor will say, it's not the mark, it's just an ID to keep you safe. Pat Robertson, who writes this book about the Illuminati, it's not the national ID, isn't the mark of the beast. Don't believe that, Deagle, he's a nut. He should be on some of these drugs the FDA are approving to fry your neurons. Federally Demonic Association, the FDA. If you put your trust in them, you better have stock. As in the days of Noah, so shall it be. The national ID is a global ID. What do you think Tom Ridge, when he was leaving, said, and this wasn't a Freudian slip by Tom Ridge, like Bush. He said, what we need now is we need a global ID. So if you're a Canadian and you want to travel to the States by January 2008, you got to report to a U.S. consulate and have a blood draw and have your genetics done by one of these biochips. You got to have a retinal scan, a 10-finger scan of all your digits, and whatever else they want down the road. It's all linked directly to the satellite system, which is complete. The ground link towers, the real ID, and the implant chip, they're ready. This is right from their NBIC website. Nanobios Cogno. By the way, all of this talk, including the 2 chapters, is on CD back there. I said, Lord, what should I give the people? The Lord said, make it simple and make it easy. Put all of your talk and a special prayer called the Prayer of the 12 Stones, which will be the prayer of the tribulation saints, because you're not going to escape the tribulation. You're going to be taken through it if you believe in our God, Yahweh. If you believe in him, he'll get you through it like the land of Goshen. If you don't, there is not going to be any physical saving. I don't care if you're a weapons expert and you've got anti-aircraft, whatever, and you've got food stored up for 20 years. You're dead. You're spiritually dead now, but you're going to be physically dead soon. It doesn't matter how far away you go. It doesn't matter if you go to New Zealand or the moon. If you don't believe in Yahweh, Yeshua HaMashiach, as your Savior, you're dead. And you're not going to have any children or any inheritance on the earth, because your inheritance is a co-inheritor with God. That's why when they're going to do this abomination of the roadmap for peace, this abomination is we can't give the land because we don't own it. We're co-inheritors with Yahweh. It said that land is his land. That city of Jerusalem is his city. You can't give Abu Dis to the Islamic people. And Islamic people can be nice people, but guess what? They worship the God, the 287th God from Mecca, that's a moon war god. Let's face it. This idea of a global religion is foolish. But guess what? After 1.5 billion dead, maybe we should put all the churches together and have a global religion, and we don't want any more of that. They're going to whip us down. That's what they think. Nanoscience, biotechnology, information, and cognitive science. Actually translating your thoughts. They have chips they can put in the back of your eye. They can actually see your brain waves, convert your thoughts into a computer. They can hear what you hear, see what you see, and even know your thoughts, just like Minority Report. It's real. Exactly. It's real. It's not imaginary. Norbert Werner, in 1948, brought up the term cybernetics, and you can read this if you just pull up his book, Cybernetics, and you can see. And Yoshi Masuda, father of Information Society, in 1980 said, our liberty is threatened by an Orwellian-style cybernetic technology totally unknown to most people. This technology links the brains of people via implanted microchips to satellites controlled by ground-based supercomputers. That was 1980. This has been up for a while. They said, well, we can't do the New World Order yet. Oh, Daddy Satan, can I do the New World Order now? This is Bush Sr., by the way. He's having a tantrum. The roots of the mark of the beast. British and German scientists, researchers have merged electronic components with a neural chip. And I'm going to show you an actual chip made at the Max Planck Institute in Germany, developed for some scientists at the University of Calgary. And this is just one area where they're doing research, and they're wide open now. They don't care. It's like, we don't care what you know about the New World Order. It's just a good New World Order. It's not a bad one. Now, 5 years ago, you were a psychotic fool if you believed in the New World Order. Now it's like, well, it's a New World Order, but this is, good. And they got these gallium arsenide chips that actually will take over your mind. Iridium satellite towers to the Gwen and the cell towers, ELF mind-and-body chips, they got it all. This is an actual photomicrograph, scanning electron microscope of a neuron growing on an actual matrix that was made at the Max Planck Institute. Neurochip, snail chip, robo-roach, cyber soldier, cyber citizen. That's what they want to make you. There's only going to be two classes. There is the overlords and the cybernetic robots. That's the rest of us, just like the movie Robots. This is Dr. Delgado, MD from Yale. He talks about the MindLink chip. This is actual congressional record. You can read it. February 24th, 1974, edition of the Congressional Record, number 26, volume 118. He said, we need a program of psychosurgery for political control of our society. This is an actual picture. And of course, it's one of these wacky magazines, but you could track it down. I found out this is all real. This is a robo-roach. This high-tech cockroach isn't just another pretty face in the insect world. Its body has been implanted with microelectrode backpack that allows it to, all its movements to be manipulated by remote control. Roach today, you tomorrow. This is actual University of Calgary scientist Dr. Naweed Syed that published this, and it was reviewed later. If you read this article, nerve memory firing patterns remembered by the chip. They actually integrate these chips right with your neurons, so they got total control of your brain. This implanting study, this is written here by Michael Feinzelber, PhD at the Weizmann Institute in Israel. This intriguing study is an important step to link physical and biological circuits together. That's an actual quote. That's one of the chips. I call it the ADS, Applied Fallen Digital Digital Chip. And then believe me, they got 4,000 companies. There's one of their divisions in Barcelona, Spain, that's making 1 billion chips a year that can be put in you. So it wasn't just their little club so you can buy a glass of booze by scanning your drunken hand over a little scanner thing, or getting into your locker at their little place there in Spain. They get 1 billion chips, and believe me, there's not 1 billion Spaniards. There isn't. Sorry to break your bubble. So if you don't refuse the mark, you're going to become one of the matrix. And this is here right now. Whether you're 8 or 80, we are that generation the Lord spoke about. 90% of the words of prophecy in the Bible have not happened, but guess what? We're there. You're sitting in the audience reading the program, and the stage is set, and all the actors and props are ready. The New World Order is here. The virus is converted in Qinghai province. They passed the Patriot Act 1 and 2, which is providing advanced technology and technological things to receive and intercept operational terrorism. It's not patriotic. This is providing advanced technology for Satan to take you over and put you in the matrix. U.S. cyborg soldiers. I was shown this. I actually saw the prisoners laying down with the wires into their heads at UCLA, at the VA Wadsworth Hospital in Santa Monica. Dr. Carl Sanders was doing work. This is back in the 60s. The Rambo chip was used in Vietnam. They were experimenting on our soldiers so they could cause, and they put these in the basal ganglia. It's called the rage center. It's an area called the tectum of the midbrain, where they could put palladium electrodes in and wire them to the back of their head, so when they wanted to have them killed, they'd throw this button and say, kill, and they'd go, and then they would kill anything in sight, including their own buddies. So you wonder why weird stuff happened over there? They had a Rambo chip in them. Okay? Remote monitoring system. They had it in our special forces since the mid-'80s, even over in the East German border. I took care of guys that had chips taken out of them. There were Special Op and Delta over there. The truth shall set mankind free. And it says that the Lord, God, Yeshua HaMashiach, is the way, the truth, and the life, and no man comes to the Father except by him. The fear of Yahweh is the beginning of all knowledge. Yeshua is the way, the truth, and the life. And you must shema. And when God says something, shema in Hebrew means to hear and do. And he doesn't even separate it. There's not even a hyphen in there. If you aren't doing, he doesn't think you ever even heard. And what he does is exactly what Moses did on God's command. He put half the tribes of Israel on the Mount of Ebal and half the tribe on the Mount Gerizim, between the Mount of blessings and cursing, which is what I'm doing today. I'm giving you a blessing and a cursing. I'm not cursing you. I'm saying today choose life, not only for you but for your nation, because you're the temple. If America is lost, we are all under the matrix. And you must witness to all these other countries. Arm your citizens, Canadians, Mexicans, whatever. Teach your people the truth, that without God, you will not stand up for the truth. Whether it's an aborted baby or a child with Down syndrome or someone 90 that you don't want to have around because, well, they're expensive and they're persnickety, and they remember that there was a source of liberty before we did 9/11. You know? They don't want to have gray heads around that are smart. They don't. This is the day the veil of lies is lifted from your eyes, and the scales are fallen, your ears are opened. Amos chapter 3:7, surely the Lord God will do nothing, but he reveals to his servants, the prophets. And Yeshua is the capstone. They've got all these crazy movies out now with all these Masonic themes, like National Treasure. It's because the Masons want to make it the world religion. They want to take it out. Well, it's time now to do it. It's time now for the end. It says in Daniel, which of course the Jews don't want to read, that the stone cut out without hands, which is the capstone, which is Yahshua, the Father in the flesh, that he crushed the statue on the toes. He did. He crushed the statue on the toes of clay and iron, and it was crushed and blown away and was no more. And God's kingdom is going to last forever, not 1,000 years. And I'll just dispel the 1,000-year thing too, by the way, while I'm at it. If we're all raptured away and we're all believers, who is going to be on the earth to be a people, as God said, forever to worship him? If there are only 300 people in all of America that are believers, and God says, those 300, they're going. They got a ticket. I'm going to take them right on. I'm going to fold their underwear and their socks. They can be a jet pilot. They're gone. Who is going to teach them if their pastors and teachers of the true believers are gone? What kind of cauldron of evil teaches that there's a rapture and that there's any kind of salvation after the only ones who believe in God are taken up? And who can believe that once God's cast the false prophet and the beast stick here into hell, that Satan isn't there too? They're triune gods. Okay? This is the big show. We either serve God or Satan, and God is very simple. He's a God of order. They're doing these ground wave emergency networks, controlling the weather, mind control, behavior and mood, and sending synthetic telepathy, infrasound. You can go to Japan, they even have these Coke machines now say, drink Coke, in Japanese, of course, and it sends it right to your skull, so you actually say, well, I wonder why I want to go drink a Coke. They've got these machines in Japan where they can actually do it right now. It's right there in Japan today. You can go to Japan, Osaka, Japan right now, and this little, of course, we don't understand Japanese, so the Japanese are saying, I don't want to understand why they're not buying those drinks. We don't understand Japanese. So when our head vibrates, we just hear funny Japanese things in our head, and we say, oh, gee, I don't know what that is. Maybe somebody's got the radio loud. They're doing it today. You can actually go search it. Infrasound, look at marketing over in Japan. They're doing it. HARP, the Gwen system. They're modifying the jet stream. They're doing this to suppress your immune system. Notice that system has barium, titanium, and aluminum to suppress your immune system, and nanobacteria, as well as mycoplasma that actually suppresses your immune system. So when they send the real bad guys like the avian flu, you and all your children, your uncles and aunts, and everybody else will die. Of course, unless you report for the vaccine. It has even more ELF chips in it and other toxic stuff that'll fry your brain and your immune system. And I'm telling you this as a doctor who's been trained in this, and I can tell you the technical details if you want to call and ask me. So this is a picture of Hartman. You can actually see it there. There are 4 riders of the apocalypse. The white horse is the emperor of earth, the false prophet of global peace and socialist democratization. Just as they said that the Lord told me to say, global eco-communism and Islamic terror. They want to send us. Who is the masters? It's the transnational corporations and the Satanists, the sodomites, the bisexuals at the top. The red horse, the PNAC document, look at it. President Bush is following all this with Wolfowitz and Pearl, and Jeb Bush wrote this document. How come they're not impeached? Why? Wars and rumors of wars, Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, Iran, Korea, 62 nations. Literally, they got it planned over 100 years. You should look at these documents. Go on the websites, go on Power Hour, go on Alex Jones, go on all of them. Look up the documents yourself. Don't believe anything I say. For God's sake, if you believe anything I say, I want to go slap you. Go check it out and go pray hard. But when you got the truth in you, you better do something with it. It's like me passing a 2,000 degree hot stone right out of the lava. Put it in your hands and say, what are you going to do with that? Whoa, man, that's hot. You've got to do something with it. Pass it on to others. When you get those CDs back there, by the way, the Lord told me to put those out. There is no price set, and there will be never a price set on anything I do. As the Lord, you read that little note in there, it says basically, I'm going to paraphrase, as you bless, so shall you be blessed in the spirit and the flesh. Because I have to go and travel around the country, a very great danger. Because the peace treaty, the roadmap for peace is going to be signed, and they're going to separate and split the nation of Israel into 2. And the city, the footstool of God, is going to be split into 2. You know what my flesh says, Deagle? Shut up and go home. But I have to do it. Because humanity is about to be wiped out of the face of the earth. Your children, my children, anyone of any nation, Satan plans on killing, stealing, and destroying and robbing all of us now. The black horse, global financial depression. Listen to Joan Vion. She's telling you the technical facts. This is all real. They're ready. They're ready. Get those materials from all these people. Support them. Back to and most important, besides all the financial support, to make sure they continue to talk, pray for them because their angels respond to prayer. And if they don't have protection, they're going to get hit by a truck on the side road, or they'll suddenly die and you won't know how they died. Wonder why all those people aren't around. I wonder why Genesis is no longer on the air. I wonder why that guy died of cancer. We need protection. And God's saying, if you don't pray for those who are sticking at the front, you know, the point man, if you've ever been in Vietnam, the point man with his dog out there waiting for the Viet Cong to shoot back, we're the point man. We're out in the front. The pale horse, global pandemics, and they're doing it now. They're planning on killing a heck of a lot of you. They got it right in the public documents. They say, well, by 2050, they want to reduce the world population by, maybe 75, 85%. But in America, they want to reduce the population 100 million less than it is now, even though they're encouraging all these third world nations like Mexico and all these other South American and Central American nations to come here. And so we have a bursting 35 million with no health care benefits. Of course, it's all paid for. It's an unfunded requirement, which is why, of course, all the hospitals in California and so on are going bankrupt, because it's an unfunded mandate. And they're coming across with resistant TB and everything else. The thing to do is to help their nations so that they want to stay in Mexico, and let them legally move here if they want to, but make sure they don't bring plagues and diseases and don't come across here as Muslim terrorists, because eventually they will, of course. Or Chinese regulars. You know what they tell the Chinese regulars? Your wife is in America. They got like 36 million excess males that can never have a wife. They said, Mao said in his little red book, they can raise an army of 200 million. Does that sound familiar? Does that sound familiar? That's what's going on. Does this guy look familiar? If this were a dictatorship, it'd sure be a heck of a lot easier, just as long as I'm the dictator. And I sort of stole this. You'll see that it's got the caption as copyright. I won't break their copyright. That's from InfoWars. And I support everybody, including Alex. You can see that on there. It's pretty funny. That shows, George Bush. White House statement by President Bush insulted by George Lucas' latest dialogue on Star Wars 3, Revenge of the Sith. They were just doing this to make fun of me. Yeah. I think George Lucas is even getting the idea. He's doing an allegory to say, this is what's going on. Hey, he's got access to PNAC. He could listen to this video. I hope you do, George. Get saved, too. Otherwise, you're going to the lake of fire, too, guy. Wars and rumors of war. By peace he shall destroy many, and the second beast shall make them take a mark in their right hand or forehead. Do you know what nation that is? I walk through the array of the computer system that is the basis for the mark of the beast, and it's here in America. It's not in Europe. It's not the beast computer system in Brussels. Those are all sub-networks. I know it because I took care of the computer scientists that took care of these systems. The mark of the beast is going to be enforced by America. The globalists want to use America like a whore or like a weapon, clench it like a fist to smash the world, to do whatever it wants, and when it's finished and they've killed the population and destroyed the genetics of all the soldiers and put communist Chinese and former CIS nation troops here, they'll just throw it away. That's what they're going to do. And you better get a life. This is the end of the nation of America, like de Tocqueville said. America is not great because of its great waters and other things. It's great because it's a great people, because it is the people of the book. The people of the book. Check it out, wake up, resist tyranny, overcome. It says in the Bible to be overcomers. Be doers of the word. Shema. Hear and do. The prayer of the 12 stones is on that. And again, I'm not setting any price, whether it's $1 or 1,000 or 1 million. Copy it, but copy it right. Make sure you spread it. The Lord said that one little bag of seeds will become hundreds and thousands of bags of 100 kilos of seed. But multiply it and get it out to all of the nations, translate it into other tongues, translate it into the Islamic tongues, translate it into Japanese, translate this into every tongue on earth, because if the people don't know, whether you're Japanese living in Osaka or you're Russians living in Moscow, Satan is going to kill and destroy you and your genetics. He's going to put a chip in you. He's going to march you off to war. He's going to put you in gulags like the one they built for us in Alaska, or underground work prisons. This is here. I have 4 children, 3 boys. I don't want them to die in one of their stupid wars, but believe me, if they have to die for the truth, I back them up and put a gun in their hands. The book of the 12 stones, I've given you the first 2 chapters. The other 10 chapters will be released, and they will start to be released on the first day of the treaty, when they split the city of Jerusalem and they start the sacrifice. Come out of the Babylonish churches. Come out of her, Babylon the Great, mother of harlots, and of the abomination of the earth. Flee the synagogues of Satan. Do you know what Jews believe? You probably don't know. They believe in the transmigration of souls, and they believe in reincarnation. I wanted to sit down 12 years ago with this rabbi from New York. I said, look, teach me. I want to learn Hebrew. He said, well, you have to understand something. After I talked to him for a while, we're closer to witches than we are to you Christians. You're way over here. I said, what do you mean? And he was actually really honest. I couldn't believe it. He said, don't you understand that we believe in like the Kabbalah and witchcraft and calling up spirits and the transmigration? I said, my gosh. He said, when I was unsaved and I was learning how to be a witch, which I was as a teenager for a few years because I was kind of interested in that, I said, you know, you're right. Thanks a lot. I'll pay for your coffee. Thank you. You have to understand that every synagogue in America and any other nation is a synagogue of Satan. The people of Judah have not returned to the truth that's in their Bible, the Tanakh, and their Chumash. They have not read the words. They're like a man who reads a book and seeing the letters says, that's interesting, let's go on. Let's read the Tehillim, but never get the word into their heart as hard as concrete. But don't talk about Jesus, oh, he's an illegitimate son of a Roman soldier. He's an abomination. Their Messiah, Jesus said, someone will come in his own name, and you will receive. But I come in my Father's name, and you do not accept me. Raise up the republic. And believe me, America, the reason why America is so blessed is because it's the only republic in modern history, which is the only form of government that God accepts. No king, And the rights of the unborn and the elderly, and like my daughter was 12 years old with a heart defect and needing 2 surgeries, she has just as much rights as the President of the United States to live. Just like when they asked me, don't you think Dr. Hearn should die because he does these late-term abortions? And I came up with an answer that never was on 9 News in Denver at that Roe versus Wade thing. Dr. Hearn deserves to live just like the babies he's killing. 2 minutes before the head is removed from the body, and the woman passes the baby at 9 months, and he sticks scissors in the back of their head and sucks their brains out and collapses the skull with a craniotomy. Our rights come from God and not from the courts. You'll see that in the 9th Amendment of the Constitution. You should see it and read it. Get the books from Pastor Pa. Find out for yourself. The first republic was Israel that went down the wrong road toward the dark side. And the last republic is America. That's why they're so important. And I read this already. You can get it in the back if you want to listen to it. I'm running out of steam here and it's late. But I am going to be around for a while this evening. And I can give you some more help. But get this into your spirit. And then Shema. Take it to heart. And do the word. Be doers of the word. Don't walk, as they said in the book of James, don't go and walking away from seeing his own countenance in the mirror and not remembering who he has seen. You have to see the capacity for which humans are capable of, but no man does good except by the will of God. The greatest evil is to do what is right in your own eyes, which is what they did before the time of Noah when God sent the flood. And now he's sending a judgment of fire, and we're heading toward a nuclear war that we have promulgated and spread the technology, pestilence, war, famine, and destruction of humanity. Thank you for coming this evening, and God bless. And we're going to do a prayer call after Pastor Butch talks.